Hey guys, it's Wealth Wednesday and I am filling up my car. I just got back from the gym and I'm on my way to a Zoom call to learn about some new stuff that I might be bringing to my practice. We'll see. I'm always trying to figure out ways to make getting healthy as easy and as straightforward as possible for you. And one thing that I wanted to talk about is that I think by now that you all know that I believe that health starts in your gut. And you have to have that good foundation, and then from there, your hormones, and we're talking metabolic hormones, so we're talking cortisol and insulin and thyroid hormone. Eventually, because it is a pyramid, we will get to those sex hormones, but those things, once you have a very good, healthy garden that is your gut, then those things just naturally kind of fall into line and they start to balance themselves out on their own. So it's less about what do I need to add in order to get my hormones in balance. It might be just really laying that good foundation. And so one thing that people talk to me a lot about is they say, which probiotic should I use? Which probiotic should I take? And most of the time I tell people to stop taking the probiotic that they are taking. And I tell them that your gut isn't healthy enough for a probiotic right now. So, and I wanted to explain that. And simply stated is that a lot of times, before I knew much about functional medicine, I thought that I needed a probiotic because I didn't have any bacteria in my gut. And that isn't necessarily true. We have these keystone bacteria. These are the ones that we get when we're children, that we get from the soil. Like, these are literally the foundational bacteria that we want in our gut. And we would really like to have about 40 different types of bacteria in our gut. Most of us probably have half or less than that because of all the antibiotics that we've taken and how our food is genetically modified and how we are exposed to toxins and just all of that. So that really affects our microbiome. But it's not that we don't have any bacteria. It's that we don't have our bacteria in a variety, because we really want United Colors of Benetton there, right? That tells you how old I am. We really want a diverse different species of bacteria in our gut. And some of those we want in larger amounts and some we want in small amounts. So when people haven't prepped the groundwork and they haven't created the perfect growing environment for those probiotics, and they add that bacteria to their gut, a lot of people think, well, they don't work. Well, they do work, but you have to add them at the right time and you have to add the right ones and in the right way, right? So you would never go out and just not till up the soil and not fertilize the soil and not have the soil mix right and not plant seeds without watering them and without, weeding them and that sort of thing. Same exact thing for your gut. You wouldn't do that. So I think that we are, a lot of times we're just trying to add things to an environment that is dysfunctional, and it's not going to work like that. So if you have crappy soil and you could plant the best heirloom seeds, but they're not going to take root. And so you're not going to say that the seeds don't work, right? You're going to think about that and you're going to be like, oh, I didn't do everything that I needed to do to prep the ground. Same exact thing for your gut. So one of the things that I think doesn't get talked about enough is that, most people think that it's just adding probiotics before my gut is ready for probiotics just means that they don't take root and they don't grow and they don't have the effect that I'm looking for. True, that can absolutely be true, but it could be detrimental for you, because here's what happens. When you have those bacteria that should be in small amounts and they have the environment, a dysfunctional environment that allows them to grow and to outnumber some of the other bacteria that we want in larger amounts, then we have what we call dysbiosis. And dysbiosis is essentially just that the ratios are wrong. Have you ever had anybody that's made you a drink, like an alcoholic beverage, and they've got their ratios wrong? Like they have way too much alcohol, not enough not enough mixer. That's how I preferred my drinks, by the way. But almost 1,000 days sober, so I'm just going to throw that in there. Anyway, you know, it's the same thing. You want that ratio correct. And if it's not correct, then you can have bloating, you can have overgrowth of bacteria. And many times when people say, you know, I've got bacteria growing in my gut, it's the keystone bacteria, it's the foundational bacteria, but they're just in huge numbers when they really shouldn't be. They should be supporting actors, but they're up front in the lights and they're taking the spotlight from the bacteria that should be in the spotlight. That's dysbiosis, and you can have a lot of symptoms from that. So the other thing that can happen is, yes, those probiotics that you throw in a dysfunctional environment might not take hold, but what they might do is that they might not be the right ones, and so they grow and they cause a dysbiosis. They actually, you have too many, you're replenishing too many of the wrong kind, and they're kind of taking over. And so it's the same as not having enough as having too much of the wrong kind. And so sometimes that's what happens when you add probiotics into an environment, number one, that isn't ready, or that you add the wrong probiotics in there and they actually take advantage of the situation. So probiotics absolutely work. You want to be sure that you're getting a high quality, you know, probiotic. A lot of times those need to be refrigerated, or they need to have multiple strains of bacteria, and they need to have the right strains of bacteria for you. And this is where I say that testing instead of guessing is the absolute right thing to do, because we don't want to add in those bacteria that your microbiome doesn't need, because they can take over. But you also want to prepare the soil so that when you do spend the money on those probiotics, that they're the right things for you and that you've given them the best environment in order to grow. So just a couple minutes with me. I'm on my way to my Zoom call, and hopefully I have some good news about some things that we'll be adding to my practice real soon.